Hey everybody, welcome to the Boooolhucker podcast. I'm Moose Lundstrom.
And I'm Christine Casto.
Now this isn't a normal podcast we're doing today.
No.
This is actually a first. We're actually doing a special episode for Halloween.
Oh, Spookfest.
Spookfest, because I love this kind of stuff. I've been talking about this for like a year, doing a podcast. Yes. There was 4 of us, but Christine had to kill the other 2, just to get in the spirit, of course.
Hey, got to steal the spotlight somehow.
That's right. That's just a joke, by the way. If they're really dead, then we got nothing to do with it. So
No, never seen him before.
I'm a little bummed Densey couldn't be here because Densey gets so into this. She doesn't like supernatural stuff, but she gets freaked out easily by it. She gets the willies pretty easy. So.
Oh god, darn it!
So what we're gonna do with this podcast is I reached out to everybody that's done the podcast over the past ever. And to see if anyone had any kind of supernatural stories. And I had quite a few people actually get a hold of us. So,
yeah.
And so we have a few videos recorded we're going to go over today. We're going to talk about it a little bit. It was a lot of fun. There's a lot of people that did offer to do it that I couldn't hook up with. So there may be part 2 coming. So if you have a Halloween story or a supernatural story you'd like to tell, please let me know. I'd love to hear about it. And maybe we'll make another one of these.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
It'll be fun.
It'll be fun.
All right. Are you ready? You want to start?
Yeah, let's do this.
We're going to start with your story.
Okay.
We'll play the video right here, and then we'll talk about what we've done.
Okay, so about 10 years ago when I managed the Elks, I went in one morning to do my liquor and inventory ordering. And I usually go in early when nobody's in the lodge at all. And I was down in my office in the basement, and I could hear kids running across the floor upstairs in the hall. That people would rent out, and I was just like, what in the world? And then I thought, well, the secretary must have brought his kids to work with them, and they are up there just running around and playing. So I gathered my stuff to go upstairs to take my inventory and whatnot, and I usually put my purse down on the floor underneath the edge of the desk. But this day, I don't know, for whatever reason, I just set it in the chair that nobody ever sat in my office unless somebody came in to rent the hall. So I went upstairs to do my inventory, and as I was going up the stairs, all of a sudden the noise stopped. The kids weren't running around. It was just all of a sudden quickly quiet. And I was just like, wow, that's weird. And so I got upstairs to the hall, and there were no kids up there. There wasn't anybody up there. And the secretary's door was still locked. And I was like, oh, well, I must have missed him on the way while I was going up the stairs. They must have already gone down and out the front door. So I collected my stuff, did my thing, and made sure that I shut all the lights off on my way out. Went downstairs back to my office. And as I was going into my office door, I could just feel this cold breeze just go like past me as I was going in the door. And I was like, what the world? But I didn't really think too much about it until I sat down at my desk and my purse and all of the contents of it were strewn across the room. Like somebody had just thrown my purse out of the chair, and it was just everywhere. So that was my experience. I was the only one in the club that day, and nothing was missing from my purse or anything. It was just dumped out like I had sat it where it wasn't supposed to be sat. And so I, needless to say, never ever went in again by myself early in the mornings to do my inventory.
So the Elks Lodge was, I've heard that before.
Yeah, I tried looking up anything on the Elks Lodge just to find out there's something there. And to be clear, I never seen anybody or any ghosts, but I sure felt their presence, and it was quite a creepy thing, to say the least.
So Cheryl Ruppel, I believe, was the manager, before you, but I don't know right before you, but she had made mention in like a joking manner that there's somebody else in there, you know. So there's actually, and I looked all over. I couldn't find anything on the Elks Lodge that it was haunted. But we've heard rumors that it was a hospital at one point in time.
Yeah, I've heard rumors that they used that for a makeshift hospital. There was some outbreak, and I don't recall what, but that they just housed and used it for like an infirmary for hundreds of people.
Right.
And so I'm sure along those lines there were deaths there.
Kind of like back in the day when the tuberculosis outbreaks happened, and a lot of people. Well, Estes, the Stanley and Estes was actually founded by the guy looking to cure his tuberculosis with fresh air.
Wow.
So a lot of them came to Colorado because that was it was fresh air was the main cure, right?
Right.
So it could be happening. If you actually have any information on that, or can enlighten us or point us to the right article, I'd love to read it, and I'll make sure to pass it to Christine. Because I'd be curious about it.
I am very curious.
There
was actually something there.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very curious as to what.
Right. It just went through your purse.
Yeah, rummaged.
It was a burglar, a ghost burglar, the worst kind. So
I just set it in the wrong place. You don't sit in that chair.
Right.
And you don't put your things in my chair.
Right. And I've heard that they're very territorial at times. They don't.
Yeah.
It depends whether they like you or not. I don't know. So.
Well, I got out of there alive, so it must like me.
You must be all right. Okay. That was a great story, Christine. And before we go on any further, I do want to say we're at the Club Tap Room right now. So if you wouldn't mind, check out the Club Tap Room down here. All the links will be below, as long as Piggin' Out Barbecue, which you guys do, a catering service. So please make sure you check that out and support them. Also, there is a Brush Arts Center, which some of these have been recorded at. I'm going to give him credit. Robert Gifford, you're the man. He's the owner and operator of the Brush Arts Center. Very good dude. And he's got a next story coming up. But their link to their stuff will be in the description. Please go support that local business. It's something very unique to the area and something very cool. So please make sure you check it out. Speaking of Robert Gifford, he had a story, our next story up. This one, when I reached out to everybody, he got a hold of me and says, well, I kind of have a story. I don't know if it's what you're looking for. And he told me the story, and I'm like, that's exactly what I'm looking for.
Yes.
So here's Robert Gifford's story.
Well, I'm going to share a story from when I was younger and had a demonic encounter or two. I was 26 years old, and I was working in Denver for a large company at a restaurant as a bar manager. Started out as a bartender and ended up being a bar manager there. The head manager of the place and 3 other of these same restaurants was a self-proclaimed satanic worshiper, and I won't give you her name. But she always wore the goat head pentagram around her neck and, would invite you to various things. None of which I attended, but she was always working on me. At the same time, I was dating a young lady who I ended up marrying many years later that actually was a Christian, and I had zero real Christian upbringing. I had Santa Claus and Jesus and the Easter Bunny and the resurrection. I just thought they were all just stories, and I didn't know anything really honestly about it. But she started telling me about God and peace and all these different things, and I was a searcher. I had done transcendental meditation, and my sister had dabbled in witchcraft, and I was doing the same thing and reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead and trying to practice a little bit of narcomancy, which is, where you try to talk to the dead. And anyway, scary stuff. But it wasn't that scary to me at the time, but it ended up being scary when I started hearing and understanding some of the truth of the gospel that my girlfriend was telling me. Just cut to the chase here. One night, I was alone in our little house in downtown Denver. My sister and I lived down there. And when I went to bed, I just sat on the edge of the bed, and suddenly the room filled. It was almost like you could just sense a tangible presence. It was, I don't know how else to describe it. It was very real. It was just, I couldn't see anything, but you could feel the presence in there, and it was terrifying, literally. I'm not one to get scared particularly, but this was terrifying. And I pulled myself up onto the bed, and I had the distinct impression that if I got out of bed and stepped on that floor, it was going to kill me. And I mean, it was life and death kind of thing. And it may sound ridiculous, but it was very, very real. And I called my girlfriend, and she says, "Do you have a Bible?" And I happened to have a Bible. It was underneath my table stand, trying to level off the end table. I was using it as a wedge. But at any rate, I pulled it out, and she had told me to read Psalm 23. And so I read it, and I was going through it. And as I pulled out the Bible, the phone went dead. And she, on her side of the phone, she tried to call me several times. I tried to call her back several times, and the line was just dead. I went to reach over to hit the light switch, and all the lights go out. And here I am in this very dark little house, creepy already because it was an old house, and terrified, just absolutely terrified. And I fell asleep that night with the Bible across my chest, and it sounds ridiculous, but that's the only thing I believe that got me through that night and kept me safe. A couple of days later, we had a woman pastor come in, who was not an exorcist, but that was familiar with these types of things. And she came in with holy water, and she had me get rid of all kinds of paraphernalia and books and different things that we had in the house. And some of the spell books and different things, particularly, she wanted burned, and we burned a bunch of stuff in the fireplace. And I had this bong, which I had had since I'd been in the military, and loved it. It was a Cobra, and it had a lot of good parties on it. And anyway, make a long story short, she said, "You got to get rid of that thing." And I took it, and I threw it up in the air out in the backyard, and it came crashing down in the alley behind the house. And when it crashed, there was literally a scream, like a murderous scream, as that snake bong broke apart, which, hey, this is a true story. No explanation for that at all, but again, chills up your spine and your hair raises up on your head, and goosebumps, the whole bit. My sister, I moved out of the house right after that, but my sister stayed there. She was a nurse, and had worked at one of the hospitals in Denver, and she was in the shower. We had an old clawfoot tub in there, and it had one of the shower curtains that goes on a ring around the top of the bathtub. And she's in the shower. Somebody grabs her, throws her against the wall, started beating her up. And by the time she got out of the shower curtain, and there was no one in the room, and the door was still locked, and so was the window. So there was absolutely no one in there. And yet, she'd been beat up and even had bruises. And then later that same day, she was trying to open the window that was stuck, and it was just happened to be above the toaster that we had, and the toaster flamed up and caught her hair on fire. And anyway, to say that she was freaked out, it was, I would say, the very least. But anyway, very, very real. I think it was because I was maybe switching sides, so to speak, and somebody just wasn't happy about it. A few days later, this manager of the restaurant that I was working in came driving up. I was waiting again for my girlfriend, who's now my wife, who worked in one of the other restaurants down below us. And when she came by, that exact same spirit, whatever demon or whatever that was, came upon me right in the car. And again, I knew I was going to die. I just knew it. It was terrifying, and it was so real. I can't even describe it to you. But at any rate, all of a sudden, these words start coming out of my mouth, and I had no idea what it was, just gibberish. And as I spoke them, it literally started to drive back that presence. And the more I realized what was going on, the more I spoke it, and the louder I spoke it. And later on, talking to that woman pastor that had come in with the holy water, she said that was a gift of tongues, to, a prayer to God, that I didn't understand, but that God did. And at any rate, it pushed that back. So, just saying, this stuff is real.
Do you remember what the words were?
Absalababa, which I looked up some different dialects, and it's almost a lot of Arabic and different type dialects. It's like daddy or father, or So here I am. I mean, I don't speak any other language, and and I didn't even know there was such a thing as tongues. Much less that there was a gift or anything in the Bible about it. It just came, and it worked. And I can tell you this: anytime I've ever been afraid ever since, I remember those same words, and it always brings me peace, which is crazy, but it's true.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob.
You're welcome.
So I looked a little bit of it up about the tongues. It appears many times in the New Testament.
Yes.
A few different times. And Corinthians 14:2. It's a holy language that nobody is familiar with in the room, basically. So it's a gift from the Holy Ghost in the Bible, and that it's to ward off or to bring peace, whatever. So kind of crazy when he told me that story, and I was like, that's exactly what I'm looking for, Rob.
Right. That was. I've sat in church, and there were ladies that would always speak in tongues, and it was like, what in the world? It is a sight.
So if you look it up online, there's a lot of places that say it's easy to do kind of stuff. So I don't know if it's like a meditation type of thing or what the deal is.
I think it just comes to you from the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
It's not something you can practice or something you can. It's just there or it isn't.
It was super wild that it came to him at that point, and it also, in my research that I did on it, that it does. The person speaking it doesn't even understand what they're saying.
No, they have no idea.
Yeah,
what they're
but there's just start speaking a different language. So, pretty crazy stuff. When he told me that story, I was just like, wow, that's a crazy story, Rob. So, and he's an interesting cat. He's a good dude. So, and that was filmed at the Brush Art Center. So, thank you, Rob Gifford, for giving us that opportunity there as well as here. So, that was a great story, though. Yeah. I very much enjoyed it. Ready for the next one?
Yep.
Next one is one of your bartenders, actually, who has a lot to do with this. So she could have told me story after story after story, but she chose this one. So here we go. This one's Alyssa Anderson. This was filmed at the Club Tap Room. So
yes, it's about, I want to say, 1993. I'm about 8 years old. Me and a few friends go to the swimming pool. We have my little sister with us, so that means she's probably about 3 years old. Come back to my house on Latham Ave, and my parents are gone. Never told us they were leaving, and we're all a little weirded out because their kids are supposed to be staying with us. No one's home, so we're sitting on the front porch, not wanting to go inside just so we don't get in trouble while they're gone. Sitting there talking on the porch, and all of a sudden we hear whispering. And the whispering's coming through the open window in the living room. So we're peeking through the windows trying to see if maybe Mom is there, and she's just not answering. She's not. Peek inside, and I start walking through the house, and as I'm walking through the house, the living room TV turns on. It's one of those old box TVs, so there's no remote. TV just pops on. I go running out of the house, and I'm telling the kids about the TV coming on, and they don't believe me. So we go to the backyard. We're checking out the backyard. My dog's back there running around. We hear talking coming from my parents' bedroom window. And they're like, no, your mom's there. No, she's not. Just went and looked. So they're like, well, let's go in and see. Well, I'm not going in. That TV just turned on. So we grab my huge Rottweiler that's in the backyard, and we take her in with us, and we're searching the house, and we go down into the basement, and the basement has nothing but boxes, and we're all creeped out going down there as it is. So going down there now, hearing voices, makes it even creepier. So we're going down the stairs, and I just let my dog go, and she's sniffing around and gets to the corner, and all these boxes fall on top of her. She starts yelping and running up the stairs. We start yelping and running. Well, not yelping, but running, and go flying out of the house. Well, later that night, I'm in bed, and something wakes me up, and I roll over, and I have a ghost standing there, and it's half a body. He's in a, army uniform, and it's just half his the top half torso. And I roll over, creeped out, and on the other side is the bottom half. I took off screaming, get out of that room, into my mom's room, and refused to stay in my room for about 2 or 3 months.
How long was that?
10 years.
Did this happen towards the end of it?
No. That was probably like 3 years in, and then after that I saw ghosts all the time. Every night when I'd wake up, there'd be something different standing around my bed.
What town is this in?
Evans.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of crazy out in the middle of nowhere. Well,
it was in Greeley.
Greeley, Evans. You're correct.
Evans area.
She never gave us the address to kind of look it up to see if something ever happened in the house or not.
No, but I don't know. With the dog, your pets seem to see stuff we don't see.
Well, they have heightened senses for sure.
Yeah. So being a kid, I would have probably never ever gone back in the house.
No, I
don't care who's in the house. I'm not going back in.
Right. I take signs from up above sometimes, and I had this said to me twice. Robert actually told me this when we were talking about this, filming his video, and then a ghost show I watched said this, that when you research it or you really look into it, you invite it in.
Ooh.
Like it starts looking back at you. So I kind of backed off of the Travel Channel for a while, because
we're not looking into that.
No, I mean this stuff fascinates me, but I don't want it living with me. You know, so yeah, kind of crazy. And she said that 10 years they lived in the house.
Yeah, she said that it was there that she had several other things go on through the years. I would have probably slept with my mother until the day we moved out. Sure. I would have never slept in my own room again.
But then again, do you get used to it? I mean, if they don't ever hurt you, if they don't ever...
Yeah, I guess you kind of tell yourself that, well, did I really see that, feel that?
Right.
Or was I just being a Sally, you
right.
know? And you kind of you can talk yourself into a lot of things and talk yourself out of a lot of things.
Very true.
So I don't know how you would get through that one as a child.
I don't know. And Alyssa seems pretty well adjusted.
Yeah.
You know, she doesn't seem like
I don't think it messed her up too bad.
Yeah, she's not. She's gonna be killing people on the side for all we know. Just kidding, Liz. And if I'm not kidding, I love you.
Crap, love you, hon.
But most definitely, that is something that sticks with you. And she also was telling a story about a boyfriend she lived with in Greeley.
Yeah.
Because this also happened that she discovered, and I have a firm belief that it can follow you. It can attach to you. They can attach to you and follow you. You know.
Yeah, so. That's like I think the scariest thing for me of any supernatural ghost story, whatever you want to call it, is the fear of taking it home with me.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah. And one day it's probably having like mice or cockroaches. Like one day you see something like shit. Now they're here. You know, like how to get rid of it. Yeah. So.
Cats.
Definitely some crazy stuff, and to be such a young age. And if there's time, we're gonna try and play her other video too about a bar in town. That she definitely has some stuff with. So great story, Alyssa. Thank you very much. That one was actually filmed here at the Club Tap Room.
Yes.
So thank you for doing that, Alyssa. Next story, we have Lori Boyer. Now this one was filmed on the actual podcast in the Sands Theater, which the Sands Theater is creepy as hell. They're remodeling it right now, and they've done a good job, from what I understand. But I used to get creeped out when I'd be there alone, setting this up or taking it down.
Right.
I did not feel. I felt uneasy, and I don't do that very often.
Right.
You know, like I could be in this bar by myself and be fine; it wouldn't bother me at all. But for some reason, that Sands Theater.
There was something uneasy about it.
Right, but she came in and she actually we have a Stanley story later on, and one of her stories was a Stanley story.
Yeah.
So I went to go see the room number and get some information, and she didn't remember it. But I forgot about this story. She called it a middle schooler's Halloween, which seemed like such a cute little story.
Yeah.
And
trick or treat.
Yeah, well, you know what? Let's actually play the video right now and check this out. This is Lori Boyer's middle schooler's Halloween.
All right, so this I have to rack my memory for. So I had to think about this a little bit. And I'm not going to have every single detail because I was in 6th grade. I'm not in 6th grade anymore. Been out of school just a little while.
8th grade.
Yeah. So I graduated from Lafayette, Colorado. And so this was at the middle school, which no longer exists. Of course, it's all brand new now. You know. But anyway, so I was in middle school. I was in 6th grade. I went over, and it was around Halloween. I don't think it was on Halloween because I don't recall us going trick-or-treating or dressing up. But it was when all the Halloween movies came out. And at that time, like, Chucky was big.
Oh, like the Michael Myers Halloween?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Friday the 13th, Chucky.
All
those
of the
were big.
Halloween movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
like
my-
just scary in general.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when those were all just coming out. So, it was Halloween time.
Yes.
Plus, those were newer back then.
Right.
And my parents did not want me to watch those kinds of movies, so I had to go to my friends to watch them.
Of course.
So I go to a sleepover, and, we're kind of being sneaky because we're watching these movies. Her mom was working. She had a single mom, or she lived with a single mom household. The mom was working. The brother was there. He was older. He was a teenager. I don't want to say 16 or so. Her room was in the basement, and his bedroom was upstairs. So we're in her basement, and things are going fine. And she has all these dolls and stuffed animals. I just have to throw that in. That'll come back in a minute.
Okay.
So I remember us sitting on the floor. We had pillows and blankets and popcorn and all the middle school snacks, you have down there. And we're happily watching movies. And they're scary because I was kind of sheltered from that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So to me, I was like freaked out.
Yeah.
I still don't love them, especially because I associate those movies with this. And we're watching these movies. Well, and we were kind of out in the living room area. And then her bedroom was also in the basement. So at one point, she's like, hey, let's go hang out in our bedroom for a little while. Or in her bedroom for a little while. I'm like, okay, cool. And she's shown me stuff or whatever. Well, in the meantime, there had been a couple of dolls sitting out in the hallway that were hers. And she pointed out the dolls as we were walking by. And okay, cool, whatever. And I don't remember if she stepped out or not, to be honest with you. But we went back to watch movies, and those dolls were all rearranged. I'm like, whatever. But she kind of points it out, and I'm like, okay, so you're just trying to scare me. You're just trying to scare me.
Right.
But here's part of the weird part is she got this dark look on her face that just changed. This was probably my first experience with some of those things you were talking about, demons or whatever.
Okay.
Dark eyes, and her whole demeanor just changed. But I'm young, so I don't know any better.
And she's your age.
Yeah, she's my age. We're the same age. We're
Okay.
both in middle school. I can't remember
Had
her
you
name.
known her a while before all this?
I did, but I'd never spent the night at her
Right,
house.
okay,
And I hadn't
okay.
had a lot of sleepovers, so...
Right.
But I remember she had curly hair and her eyes just got dark. Like, just the whole demeanor changed of her. Just the whole thing.
Like black eyes, like
Like dark eyes.
okay.
Yeah. So we go back out, we're watching a few movies, and then of course girls can't, you can't sit still for that long when you're in 6th grade. And we go back,
Right.
lo and behold, those damn dolls were all rearranged again, moved around. I swear I'd never saw her move them. Really weird. Well, we're back in her room, and we're talking and giggling, and I told you she kind of had changed, but we're giggling, but it's weird giggle. And she pulls out a knife. Yeah. She pulls out a knife, okay? But she's not threatening me with a knife. She's just pulling it out, waving around, and flicking it. And like, I'm naive enough.
Oh, I hate her. What is
Yeah.
going-
So I'm pretty naive still at this age, and I hadn't, like I said, I've been sheltered. I don't have a lot of sleepovers. I was like, okay, she's got a knife, whatever. She wasn't
This bitch
doing
got a
anything.
blade.
Like she wasn't doing anything with it. Not looking back now, I should have been scared.
Well, yeah.
But she's not really doing much with it. But she's walking around with this knife, big knife.
Like a legit butcher
Yeah.
knife.
Like a Crocodile Dundee knife. Is that
like,
what she?
well, not that big.
It's not a knife,
like
this
one
is a
out of your-
knife.
like out of a knife block, one of the bigger knives.
Okay. It was in her room?
Yes, it was in her room.
What?
So we go back out to watch some more movies, and I'm sitting crisscross applesauce on the floor, and she was kind of lounging, laid back. So, but the next thing I know, she's standing over me with a knife over my head. She was standing, and I was like, "Should I be scared?" I'm like, "What the hell is?" Again, I'm dumb. You're in 6th grade. You have to remember back to that. Your brain
Right.
isn't really
Right.
developed enough to realize you're in danger.
Right. You feel safe with a friend.
Yeah. I think, is she just playing with me or what? Scaring me because we're
This
scary
is
movies. I'm
Yeah,
naive.
yeah.
She probably knew I was naive. But I told you her demeanor was different by now.
Right.
Okay, so I don't know, we move around or what have you. And we go back upstairs to get something. I turn around and she was holding the knife up to my neck.
The fuck?
But she didn't push it on me. She just was holding it up there. And I was like, pushed her off me a little bit.
Right.
I didn't know her brother, but I knew her brother was home. So I go knocking on his door. I'm like,
Your sister's batshit.
This is before cell phones, you guys. So there's no cell phones.
Of course.
Okay. In 6th grade, for me, there was no cell phones. It
Right.
was old phones, you know. I don't think it was a dial, but one of those push.
How far are you from your house right now?
About 10 miles. I lived out in the country. She lived in town.
I still walked.
Okay. So I couldn't just pull out a phone and
Sure.
Or a knife and fight back.
no.
Right.
Yeah, and you don't just you can't just whip out a cell phone like you now can.
Right.
You can
Right.
either dial 911 or recorder, one of the two. I couldn't do that at the time.
Right.
So I go knocking on his door. Well, the video games weren't what they are now, but that's when Mario first came out.
Sure. Nintendo.
Yeah, Nintendo. So he's in there playing Nintendo, and I knock, and he didn't want me to come in. He's like, wah, wah, leave me alone. And I'm like, help. I need your help. Well, he ended up opening the door, and I'm like, I can't remember her name. I think mentally I've blocked some of this out, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I'm like, she's holding a knife to me. I need help. Well, he was pissed off that I had interrupted his game.
Right.
Well, she comes up behind me and she's all sweet. Like, what's wrong? Like that whole demeanor thing changed back. So she's like, what are you talking about? So, of course, he thinks I'm free. He's like, get the hell out of my room and leave me alone. So we go back out to the kitchen. We're upstairs now, right? And so the knife is gone. Now there's a rope.
What?
She switches back to demon-y. And at first, she's holding that rope, dangling it over my head. And it wasn't in a noose, but she was like this over my head. I'm like, oh, I'm in trouble now. And this is the middle of the night now. Okay. So I'm at a sleepover. So, I don't know how many hours in I am.
Right.
And we're not watching movies.
Right.
She's just messing with you now.
Yeah. She's dangling a
What
rope
are you
over my
saying
head.
to her? What are your words?
I kept telling her, what is wrong with you? What is wrong? I kept saying this over and over. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? She didn't answer me. She didn't reply. I'm not kidding. She didn't reply. So I go back to the brother's room. Help. He wouldn't answer the door because he's like, get the hell out of here. You're my sister's little friend. You guys are bugging me. What is wrong with you?
Right.
Well, I turn around and I'm in the hallway and she's trying to tie me up. She grabs my hands. She's trying to tie me up.
What?
Yeah. And I'm fighting her. I'm like, no. And I kept going, what is wrong with you? Well, all my belongings were in the basement. So I was like, I've got to get my belongings and get out of here. But my mom wasn't picking me up till the next morning and I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't know where her phone was at. I'm like, what am I going to do? Run to the neighbors? And that is actually what I was going to do. But in my mind, I needed to go get my stuff. Right. I need to go get my clothes and my, I'm a girl. I needed my stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how am I going to do this? And so at one point I did run out in the front yard because I was like, I need to go. I need
she
help.
chase you?
Like, no. So she gets all sweet again. Once we're outside, she's all sweet again. But I'm like, I need to go get help from the neighbor. And so I asked when she was sweet again, I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? We're supposed to be friends. You're trying to hurt me. And what is wrong with you? And she's like, what are you talking about? We're having fun. And I'm like, I'm telling you, she was literally, she was mental or I don't know. Maybe she was possessed.
Right.
So I didn't run to the neighbors like I was going to. I went back in the house. The rest of the night was okay.
What?
Yeah. She didn't do anything else. We watched movies, but I sat there freaked out.
Did you sleep at all?
No.
Well, I was gonna say.
So finally, then daybreak comes and I had my stuff and I was out waiting on the porch for my mom.
Hell yeah.
So did you tell your mom what happened?
No, I never told my mom.
You
She
never
watches
did?
this. She's going to be surprised. No, I never told an adult what happened.
So that's Lori Boyer's story. And the reason I really like that story and it freaked me out the most is because supernatural things are very scary, ghosts or whatever. Humans are scarier.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And And if you ever thought middle school girls were mean,
Right.
oh my.
What if they're possessed?
Yeah, there was something with that family.
And I wonder, and if you watch it, that's episode 41 of the Boooolhucker, by the way. You can go back, and she's got a great Stanley story as well there. She told, that was in November of last year, right after Halloween. I was so bummed out she wasn't there before Halloween.
Oh, darn
it was so good for Halloween for Lori Boyer. But the stories, for me, is interesting because is that little girl possessed, or is she mentally unstable? Like, is there something going on with her?
Was that was when that we'll never know.
Yeah, no. Like a Dahmer almost thing. Like,
Yeah.
there's something just wrong with them, you know? And
Yeah.
but the dark eyes she talks about and the demeanor and just was she testing boundaries with Lori?
That's
know?
a good question there, is because for that little girl's demeanor to be the way it was,
Right.
that's just creepy.
It is creepy.
Just creepy because kids are supposed to be innocent.
Right.
And that was absolutely
Well,
just bizarre.
right. And that, it just, with the rope and the knife, and that's overboard, you know. And,
That's extreme.
yeah, and you can tell Lori kind
Super
of
extreme.
grew up in a good household with, you know,
Yeah.
she was a good kid, you know. So I don't know. You'll never know. And she kind of blocked a lot of it out. And when she told Dempsey and I on this podcast about this, I remember Dempsey and I having a conversation. Like, I think we're the first people that she's told that to.
Recalled that story.
Yeah.
again,
So
because-
yeah, I actually called her last night and made sure it was okay if I re-aired this.
Yeah,
this
because
story.
I'm
yeah.
sure that was pretty traumatic.
Yeah, it was crazy, but
Very traumatic.
But by far one of my favorite stories we told on this podcast so far,
Yeah.
just because how real is that story?
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah. So that's also episode 41 if you want to go back and check out Lori Boyer. So the whole episode is really great. So
Yeah, that was.
our next one is actually your brother-in-law, Rick Stroh. Well, let's play the video right now. Check it out. Here's Rick Stroh, and this one was actually filmed at the Club Tappan as well. So here's Rick Stroh.
All right, so this starts about roughly 20 years ago when me and a couple guys were in our single psychosis, I guess is the best way to put it. And we used to get bored doing things here in town or tempting fate, hanging out at too many bars. And we used to cruise around the county and look for abandoned houses or abandoned buildings and just kind of walk through. And it's kind of crazy. There's a lot of old abandoned houses and farms around town. I mean, they technically belong to somebody, so we're trespassing. But you wander through, and it's kind of a glimpse into history. In the past, we had found houses and homes with literally looked like people just packed up and left in a hurry. I remember finding old newspapers from Fort Morgan, and from the 70s, the 60s, finding people's checkbooks. It's crazy, some of the stuff you find. But anyway, we used to, like I said, cruise around. I remember a large group of people in Fort Morgan know about Adina School out south of town. And it's an old abandoned school. It looks just like one of the grade schools here in Fort Morgan, but just abandoned. Like literally everybody just packed up and left it. It's actually, last I saw, it's been years obviously, but it's in fairly good condition. And it belongs to some folks because if you wander through there and you get too loud, people come chasing you out of there. Well, south of there is an old town, I guess, is Adina, and there's a church and a post office. And I guess when you're kind of going for a booze cruise and you're single and you've got a couple girls with you, it used to be kind of fun to go wander through the church and the cemetery and see if you could scare yourself or see what was out there. So my buddy Donnie Urick said, hey, let's cruise out to the church. And we got to the church, and you wander through the little cemetery that's next to the church. And it's, I don't know, it's just wild, especially late at night. You see about a lot of little headstones. Sadly, a lot of short-term headstones, little ones that passed, and of course, animal burrows that go down into the ground or whatever they are. Maybe it's the spirits leaving, but some strange things. And then you wander into the church, and the church, it's just pretty much the structure of the building, and you hear these rumblings, or you used to hear rumblings of devil worshippers and people going out there on Halloween and seeing what they could conjure up. And like I said, kind of on a booze cruise, so you've had a few. Not anything stupid, just a few to lubricate the evening, I guess. And you're laughing and giggling and telling stories and wandering through the church. And this one night we happened to be wandering through the church, and then we all dared each other to go into the basement where they had satanic rituals, and there were pentagrams, of course, spray painted on the walls, and at the time what looked like blood on the floor, and so we wandered down into the basement, and and literally making sure you don't step on the rattlesnakes on the cement stairs. And so we walked down into the basement, and there was just some debris, and of course a couple pigeons fly up, and you literally have to wonder if you have to go change your drawers because literally scared the shit out of you. But we're down there, and all of a sudden we see out of the side windows some headlights out on the road, because this thing's about 100 yards off the road. And you're like, oh, crap, here we are trespassing. And so you, of course, don't want to get a ticket, let alone if you've been booze cruising. And so we wisely walk up the stairs and get in the pickup. And instead of going back the way we came, which is where the car was sitting, was about, 25, 30 feet back from the entrance to the church, we hop on the road and we continue south, just hoping that they'll be fine with us leaving. And we're just going slow because I didn't know if it was a cop. I mean, really, you have no idea. You're not that close and don't want to get that close. You don't want to know if it's a sheriff. So just driving normal speed, and we watching my rearview mirror, and everyone else kind of looking out the back window, watch that car back up into the driveway of the church and just sit there for a second. And then the headlights go off, and so we were just laughing and kind of, giggling, lubricatedly giggling. And we're cruising, and probably just 30 seconds, but all of a sudden, man, those headlights turn on and they're right behind us. And I remember we kind of all wigged out, and stupidly, it could have been the sheriff, but stupidly, we start hauling ass, start driving as fast as we can, and we kind of get away from them, and there's kind of some rolling hills out there at the end, and they get a little ways behind us, and all of a sudden the lights go out again. And so I slow it down, and I believe there was a second time where he was right behind us again. Just all of a sudden, boom, the lights kick on, and God, your heart just drops, and you're thinking you're either going to jail or to hell, one of the two. Imminent death is coming very shortly. So we cruised on out of there and got out of there after hauling ass away from them. But in the meantime, you wonder how, for one, this guy, I mean, he obviously knew the roads, whether it was a sheriff's deputy or the ghost of Adina School, knew, like Christine from the old Stephen King book, knew how to drive those roads, those hills, and be right on our ass without having their headlights on, and giving some stupid, not even kids, stupid 20-something-year-olds, the scare of their lifetime. And, man, if there's no ghost of Adina School, that guy comes as damn close as is possible. So, it's the ghost of Adina School.
All right, so that was Rick's story about Adina School.
Yes.
Now, you and I both try to look up stuff on the Adina School.
And you can't find anything.
No.
You cannot find anything. There are so many stories around town.
Right.
That they're pretty spooky.
It's crazy spooky. I found a YouTube video of a guy who was going to do like a ghost hunting episode there, but there's a lot of do not trespass, and don't go trying to break an Adina School. I almost didn't put this on there because trespassing is against the law, so please don't do that.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find anything as to a tragedy or anything like that happened at Adina School.
No, but I couldn't figure out, why did everybody just leave? I mean, like, you see all these just all of a sudden abandoned places. Why did they just leave?
Just up and get out.
Just up and go. And I'd heard all kinds of crazy things about south there, and I don't have any facts on anything. It's just been a lot of, I guess, gossip, if you will.
Right. It's a local legend.
But it is scary out there, especially in the dark. There are no lights.
Right.
And it is spooky out there.
Right.
I have been out there several times. Even during the day, it's still a little daunting.
You have relations out there.
Yes, I have lots of family buried out there.
Right.
And my great-grandparents grew up out there and had a house out there, and a lot of my other family is buried in that cemetery out there. And there's actually, it's just one of those things that when you go out there, even during the day, it's still kind of
freaky,
eerie.
Yeah,
it just leaves you with a
right. There's a Messick's out outside of Brush the same way.
I lived in Messick's.
Did you? That church that's halfway
Yes.
burned down, kind of crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, nobody's ever just in the neighborhood.
Right. You never see lights on. It's crazy.
Nobody's ever just in your neighborhood.
Yeah, that's some
I loved it out there.
Corn shit out there. Although I did look this up, I started looking because I know I'd heard a story about this before, and I'd looked at the. I found it. It was the North Carolina Phantom Driver. You can actually check this story out. It's a road in North Carolina, and the story goes there was a bootlegger running from the cops or from law, and head down a dirt road that was a dead end, a literal dead end, and he goes off the edge, kills him. So now I think it's I don't think it's October, like every Monday of October, I think it said. They have tours out there, but there's been lots of people that have said they went out there, they drove all the way to the dead end, flipped around, came back, and this road has no outlets for miles, right? It's just one,
a straight stretch.
Right. And they said that as they turn around, they get a little ways from that dead end, and all of a sudden a car will appear behind them. And this car followed them. And a lot of the reports said that when they were driving away, they could hear the blaring the horn, but the horn sounded like it was miles away, like real distant, but that car is right on their bumper. And just like Rick said, it's following them. So
that's creepy.
And and there's also one in Georgia too. That's not a following car, but it's actually interesting. If you want to look at the Georgia Phantom Driver on YouTube, you can check that out. Have you heard about this?
I haven't heard about this one. I heard about the other one.
Yeah, with the bootlegger. This one, Christine, there's a video of a cop's with cam, and they're following this car, and all of a sudden it takes a left turn, the cop stops, and there's a fence there. And you can see the car on the other side of the fence jetting, and it disappears. So they've tried to recreate this a few times to see how there's no way this car should be able to get through this fence.
Right.
Short of some Batman shit where it mechanically comes down and comes up like the Batcave, you know?
Dives up, yeah.
Right. And there have been people that have tried and they can't. I mean, so it's funny, law enforcement's like, I think we saw a ghost.
I think we were after a ghost.
Yeah. So this is the kind of stuff it's wild, and you can look up the North Carolina Phantom car. It's definitely interesting to read about. So kind of something like Rick said, and who knows, maybe it was somebody
unexplainable stuff.
Yeah.
It's totally unexplainable when you try to figure out, was that car really there or was it not? I mean,
right.
It's just unexplainable. You don't have answers to it, which is crazy.
And I mean, maybe it was just somebody that was that great a driver that did it without headlights. That's tough to swallow. I think Rick's seen something. Yeah, I think that something's out there that followed him.
There is something out there.
So, and there's I'm a full-on believer in all this stuff. That's why I wanted to do this episode. So
yeah,
I dig this stuff. So. Rick Stroh, that was a great story. That one was also told on the podcast.
Yes.
He when we reached out, he's like, "You mind if I retell it?" I go, "No, absolutely not. I'm gonna come back and retell it." So, and that was also filmed here at the Club Tap Room. So, all right, next story.
So when I lived in Texas for a few years, that's when my daughter's disability had kicked in, and it was one of those things to where I literally thought I was going to lose my daughter. And I didn't have anything else to kind of rely on or fall back on to get answers from. So I actually went to a church for the first time ever in my life when my daughter became ill. And the pastor had told me, he says, this is actually a spiritual battle that you're facing right now. And I didn't think anything of it. And he said that he was going to come over to my house and bless my family. And again, I didn't think anything of it. And prior to this, I didn't have anything weird going on in my house. So the night before the pastor came to my house, I was out in my yard. I was taking some pictures of some equipment and stuff to sell because I needed money for a medication that was $1,000 a day for my daughter. And I was out there snapping photos of some stuff, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, so it's pitch black outside. And I'm also using the flash to see where I'm going. And all of a sudden I hear this on the wall next to my daughter's window. And so I'm using the flash trying to see what the hell's going on. Didn't see anything. go back inside, and I go to sleep. As I'm sleeping, again, this is the night before the pastor came over, but he had made it clear he was going to come. And I was in bed, and my girlfriend at the time, she was in bed, and the vacuum in the living room turns on. And I wake up, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing vacuuming? It's like 4 a.m, and I look over, and I was like, holy shit, it's you. You're here in bed with me. So I walk out there, and the vacuum's just running by itself. And so I go up to grab it, and as I'm reaching out, it turns off. I was like, man, that's kind of weird, whatever. And as I turn around, it turns back on. So I reach back down, it turns off. I was like, just going to go to bed. This is weird. So I go in my bedroom, and then it turns back on again, and it actually fell over on the floor this time on. So I walked out there, and I reached down to grab it. We all say that we've had hair on the back of our neck raise up, or we have had hair on our arms raise up. My beard literally like porcupined out, and as I grabbed that vacuum and I ripped the plug out of the wall, my front door, we had 2 front doors. The house used to be a diner out in East Texas. And one door, the door jamb was actually crooked because the house was on cinder blocks, and so everything was just out of proportion. Never could open this door. And that door swung open, man, like a freight train plowed through my house, and then my back door opened to the house directly across from each other. So I threw that vacuum out in the yard, and I was like, I'm done, I'm going back to bed. So I slid the couch up against that door because I couldn't get that door to shut now. And next morning I got up, and I was looking through my phone, or my camera at the time, because I was going to put these pictures on Craigslist. And one of the images I got was, it looked like fluorescent light bulbs. There was 8 of them coming out of the ground perfectly straight, and then they fanned out, and then they all went into my daughter's window. And the pastor came over, and he was walking around in the yard, and he actually said, there's something right here on the outside of this house, right next to this window. And so he did a blessing outside the house. He did a blessing inside the house. And for the next week, man, I had just consecutive things happening. I had candles exploding in my house, light bulbs exploding in my house. We had animals, wild animals coming to the house. So in East Texas, there's hogs and stuff. They would come onto my property, and they would actually go to that corner of my house, and they would die. So next morning I'd get up, I would have a dead carcass outside my daughter's window over and over and over again. Before that, her and I were trying to have kids many, many years prior, and we had a bunch of weird stuff going on in the house. TVs would turn on, shower curtains would open up, toilet paper would just sit there rolling in the bathroom. And wherever we moved, it would always seem like it would follow us. And I found out that herself, she messed with Ouija boards and stuff like that. And I didn't know about this up until years later. So we had all this weird stuff going on in our house, and we went to go see a psychic. And I went there, and I'm like, this is all hocus pocus bullshit, right? And she says, I need $5,000, 100 roses, 300 candles, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, woman, you're crazy. I can't afford that. I'm a kid, So we went to another psychic down the street, and we sat down, and I told this lady, and this is before my daughter was born, I know what you people do. I know what you feed off of. You feed off of my answers. It'd be like me saying to you, what do you do for a living? Well, I run a podcast. Okay, well, I'm thinking in the future you're going to be known for your listening abilities. I'm not looking into the future. I'm listening to you and feeding off of that. So I said, I'm not going to tell you what I do. I'm not going to tell you my name. We're not going to tell you anything. You do what you do. This lady brought up names from my past, names of people that are now in my future. And she told me, she said, you guys are struggling to have a child. She says, in 1 year, no matter what kind of contraception you may use, you will have a child. She is going to be a woman of power. She's going to bring your family together. And all I could see of this female spirit is hands. So my daughter, she has juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, and her hands are the most swollen thing on her whole entire body. I'd say probably 80% of my family stopped talking to each other, and once Zoe's disability kicked in, the family came back together. But it's wild that the things I've encountered with her in my life that's put me in areas like some of the hospitals I've been to. You hear stuff in the corridors, you hear children laughing and stuff like that. But creepiest thing I've ever encountered, man, was that vacuum. I mean, I've had spirits in a house, and it's where you're like, I know it's friendly, I know it's okay, I don't whatever, but then every once in a while you get that feeling like there's something here that ain't right. And that was definitely what I felt out there in Texas, man. And to be able to see these lights coming out of my ground and then fanning in and then having animals die right there in front of the house. The pastor saying something right here is affecting this kid. You know, it was wild, man. It was wild.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was Joe Scher. You might recognize Joe Scher if you watched the podcast. He was last week. By the way, Joe Scher is a great storyteller. He really is. He's a very gifted storyteller. But
yes,
that I try to look up animals being like sick animals being attracted to like
drawn
to evil energy or something. I couldn't find much on it unless something else was killing those animals, like a chupacabra or something. You know,
well, but the animals were already on their deathbed, so maybe that was just a comforting spot.
Maybe so.
I mean, you never can tell, but the girlfriend messing with our wife, girlfriend or wife?
I said it's his girlfriend at the time.
Girlfriend messing with a Ouija board. Yeah, that's kind of
not good.
That's not something I want to mess around with or dabble in, along with the psychics.
There's another story here that this pertains to about Ouija boards and opening portals in your home. And I kind of looked at, and I don't like Ouija boards. I've never used one, never will use one. I don't think they're something to be messed around with. If you have one, keep it to yourself. I'm not a fan.
We're not friends.
Right. And I kind of looked up what it takes to close a portal. And you have to make a pendulum of some. It's got to be a weighted item on a chain, and you have to have some kind of healing energy. Is what a lot of the places said, and I don't really know what that means. I looked up I can't even pronounce it. Reiki, Reiki. Oh, that sounds right. Reiki. Is that
Reiki?
Okay? It's a Japanese technique of soothing or relieving tension by laying hands on somebody. I'm not sure how that works, but that was one of the examples given on how to close a portal. So, with Ouija boards, if you don't close them properly, and by that, once again, I don't know this for a fact. This is what I've researched. This might not be true, so don't use one in the first place. But if you do, don't listen to me. Look up yourself.
Yeah, do your own homework.
Yeah. But they said you're supposed to go. You're supposed to tell the entity you no longer wish to have them there.
We are no longer friends.
Yeah,
go away.
Time to go. And if they refuse, you're supposed to force the planchette, the little, it's called the planchette, to the goodbye, and then remove it from the board. And that's supposed to break the connection. So once again, do your own research. Don't Moose said this is how you do it, and then
let's all have a camp out.
Yeah. Get the Ouija board. Moose said he knows how to stop this shit. But that stuff is just inviting
trouble.
Yeah,
you're just asking. Let's not borrow trouble.
Because we talked briefly while that video is going about psychics.
Yeah,
and I agree with you. You kind of said that you don't want to know.
I don't want to know. I can't say I believe them. I can't say I don't believe them. I just don't want to know. I don't want to borrow any of that. I just want to leave that wherever it is and not in my area.
If there's another podcast, I think it's episode 5 or 6, Sean Kelly's episode, he has a story about, and I was going to put it on here too, it's very long, but it's about his girlfriend at the time who was messing with tarot cards, and that's when the shit in the house started acting up, so.
Yeah, I don't want to even know anything about whether they are real or not real. I'm just going to choose to stay in my lane, if you will.
Right.
I'm not messing with that.
Right. Back to Joe Scher's. That kind of stuff is crazy. And when you rent or you don't, any house I've ever been in, my mom is blessed.
Yeah.
My family's big on blessing a house before you live there. So, knock on wood.
Yeah.
Nothing's happened. So, thank you, Mom and Grandma. So, crazy stuff, though. But thank you, Joe Scher. That one was actually filmed at the Eddie's Bar in Akron.
Oh, very nice.
That's
a neat place.
Yeah, it is a really neat bar.
That's a really neat place.
Very patriotic bar. Very cool. Very lucky to have something like that in Akron. And it's got a new lunch menu, so check that out.
Oh, very good.
Go eat lunch in Akron. I might do it one of these days. Should try it there for
I'm a foodie.
Yeah, me too.
Go there for lunch.
Yeah. Have you been there for lunch?
I have not. Actually, we've played pool down there.
Right.
So I just go for the food and the tequila and sit off on the side and mind my business.
We filmed the first round of podcasts there, and she made Matt a burrito, so I think he's a fan. I think he's going to keep going
very
right
good.
there.
Very good.
But that was Joe Scher, Akron, the Eddie's Bar. Somewhere to definitely check out. And they've been in a lot of the podcasts. Yeah. Anybody from Akron, we filmed at the Eddie's Bar. So thank you, Joe Scher, for sharing that. So our next is Josh Finley. He was fun to have on. At the end of this podcast, after we get done with the last story, I'm going to put his He came on. He had a funny story. But I wanted this to be more serious. And he had two. This one we're going to watch right now is a very serious one.
Very serious.
So here we go. This is Josh Finley. This one was actually filmed at the Brush Arts Center also. Thanks again, Robert Gifford. So here we go.
It's a true story. It's a true story about some local, with a local family. My wife, when she first started, when we first got together, and she was working for this company we're working for now. She was in Greeley, and she works in an assisted living and memory care type building. But essentially, it's end of life type situation. I mean, you deal in death. Let's just say that, okay? And so a lot of times she comes home and she feels like, there's energy attached to her, things like this. But this particular time, there was a family from the mom was in the advanced stage of dementia and Alzheimer's, had been checked into the facility on the memory care side, and they had two sons, and one of the sons was going to college at the time. He had come home. This is about maybe a week or so after the mom had been admitted into the memory care. Son came home from college and ended up shooting himself while he was home on leave. And so while the family's already going through some issues beyond what was there, now they have this to deal with as well. And so they have his funeral. They do the thing that they have, whatever. And about 2 months later or so, the mom's getting ready to pass. It's her time to pass. And so at the facility that they work at, hospice will come in and they'll just, stay with you for the end of, they have the chaplain come in, do your end of, read your, last rites or whatever, and they have a hospice there. Well, the hospice nurse came in and she called her husband and asked if he'd bring her some food for the evening, because she didn't know how long she was going to be there. She's like, something to drink and maybe a little something to eat. And so he pulls up around the back side of the building, and he knew kind of where she was at. And he said, "Baby," she says, "I'm here. Can you meet me outside?" And she's like, "Yeah, hold on just a second." And so while he's in the car, like she's still on the phone, he's in the car in the back. He said, "Well, who's in the room with you?" She goes, "It's just me and her, He said, "There's a boy." He said, "I can see him in the window." He snaps a picture with his phone, zoomed it in, snapped a picture with his phone, and his wife comes downstairs to pick up the deal, and he shows her the picture, and here's literally it's a outline of a boy, a young man in a football jersey. You can almost read the numbers on the jersey, but he's standing in the room with him. Well, when mom had passed, the family was going through pictures and realized that all through their life, whenever there was a family picture taken, that he was always with her on her side of the picture the whole time. And so they feel like that he came back to help her over to the other side. But literally, clear as day in the window, you can see him standing there looking out of the window. And, to this day, it still raises the hair on my neck, that type of situation, man. But it's definitely probably one of the more freaky things I've dealt with.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, man.
So this is a great story. It's I think kind of a good story that the son was there for the passing, to kind of welcome his mom into the afterlife, maybe, I guess.
Right.
Attached to him. There's a part that I didn't understand that I guess I didn't clarify when Josh said it, that they went back through all the pictures to see, and he was always next to her.
That was kind of a shadow of him.
Was it a ghost story of him? Or was he alive? Just always. They were close. They were just.
Yeah, that I didn't.
Yeah, I couldn't. I didn't clarify. I apologize for that. So.
But the figure in the window.
Yeah.
When he brings her dinner.
Yeah.
Is I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Well, that's.
Yeah.
That was.
It's just me in here. Turn around. You're not in there alone.
I'm out the door.
Yeah,
I am out the door.
Yeah.
Real quick stuff.
I always get them mixed up, malevolent or benevolent.
Yeah,
Benevolent's good, right? Malevolent's bad. The bad go. Anyway, if benevolent, I think is the good one. They're the peaceful.
The B is the good one.
Okay.
M is
malevolence, the evil.
The evil.
Okay. If they're benevolent, it is what it is. My mom. the house that she lives in, my grandfather passed away in. And I wouldn't be scared because he wouldn't hurt me in life. Why would he hurt me in death? You know what I mean?
Right.
So that would never freak me out, something like that. But that was a great story. And then after we do our last one here in a couple, I'm going to throw Josh's other story on there because it was a funny story.
It was a good one.
It was about how he's a scared little girl times. I love you. I love you. I love you, Josh. And
That's awesome.
A great story.
Very good.
Our next one is Kelly Paris, actually on the podcast, obviously. Yes. And let's check out this. Let's check out the video. This one was also at the Brush Arts Center. So thanks again, Robert.
So I'm going to tell you a story about a very entertaining weekend that we had at the Stanley Hotel. So this happened, must have been in late 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. And my boyfriend at the time, we liked to go spend time at the Stanley Hotel just because it was fun, and we would do the ghost tours, and we would take our little EVP recorders and, do that kind of fun stuff. And we get there, and it's a Friday night, and we're enjoying dinner and drinks in the little bar that they have. And we decided to take an evening stroll throughout the Stanley and the grounds and talk to a few people there about kind of some of the things that people experience, because it was not the first time that we had been there, but it was just like the second time that we had been there, so we weren't all too familiar with all of the fun stories. And so we decide that we're going to just chill in the room or whatever, and we'll get up the next day and we'll do the tours and all that fun stuff. So we go to sleep, and I start having what I think is just a strange dream, because we'd heard stories about, children making noise on the 4th floor in the middle of the night and all this fun stuff. So I thought I was just having a weird dream. Maybe I was thinking about that. So I opened my eyes. I looked towards the end of the bed, and there was a girl dressed in what I describe as like an Alice in Wonderland type dress with an apron and poofy sleeves, and she had her hair kind of down in front like this. It was brown and kind of curly with some braids, and I was like, oh, that's weird. So I just kind of rolled over and went back to sleep, and my boyfriend at the time, a couple minutes later, was like nudging me awake. Hey, see what she wants. See what the girl wants. And I was like, weird. So I opened my eyes again, and she was on his side of the bed for a split second, but she just kind of started to disappear back into the closet. It was the strangest thing. So just went back to sleep, and next morning we wake up, and I ask immediately, hey, do you want to talk about that girl last night? Do you remember that? And he was so confused. He's like, well, I thought I was dreaming. And I'm like, hey, I thought I was dreaming. But then we described this little girl to a T, wearing just, it was like a blue hue. It wasn't any bright pops of color or anything, but she's definitely wearing a poofy sleeve dress. And yeah, so that was weird. So we go on about doing the tour that day, and we absorb all of the Stanley Hotel things. And that night was Saturday night, and we had decided that we were going to set an alarm and get up at like 3 a.m. and go upstairs to the 4th floor where they have reports of hearing children running up and down the hall and doing things like that. So we were going to set an alarm, and we were going to do that. So we kind of enjoyed ourselves and went down to the dinner and all that fun jazz, and we were watching The Shining in the room, because they play that in the loop, which is kind of funny. And some of the reports, we were just kind of talking about some of the things that we thought was interesting on the tour, and one of the reports was like hearing phantom party sounds of like people in the courtyard having a party. So as we get relaxed and get ready to turn in for the night, turn off the TV and turn out the lights, I'm like, hey, did you hear that? And Nick's like, yeah, it sounds like a party. And I was like, do you think it's a phantom party? So then we look outside, and no, there's a legit party in the courtyard. So that was kind of funny. So we go to sleep. We set our alarm for 3 a.m. I got the EVPs all charged up, recorders ready to go. The alarm goes off, and so I go to wake up Nick, and he's like, I'm not feeling good. I just really don't feel like getting up. Maybe dinner didn't agree with me, so he went right back to sleep. So I'm just lying there, kind of like trying to get back to sleep or whatever, and I start hearing the door. We were in room 311. I'll always remember that because it was the last room on the hall, and Nick's favorite band was 311, so we were excited to have that room. But it was like the exit. It had been snowing on and off like the whole weekend. It was wintertime, and so it was cold, and I just kept hearing the exit door outside of our room slamming, and somebody running down the metal stairs, and then somebody running back up the metal stairs, and slamming and running down the hall. So I was like, if I hear this one more time, I swear I'm gonna get up and crack some skulls. So it finally stopped. I went back to sleep. Around 5 a.m, we get up, we check out, we do the late checkout, and I'm telling the lady at the desk what happened when I came out of the room. I looked, and I was like, that's not right. That's an emergency exit alarm will sound. So I looked outside, and there was like 4 inches of snow on the metal stairs. Nobody was slamming that door, and nobody was running up and down those stairs. It was the weirdest thing. So as we check out, I'm telling the lady this, and she said, oh, we have a lot of people stay in the end of that hall having the same complaint. And I was just like, oh, well, alrighty then. So that was our experience at the Stanley Hotel. It was fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that was Stanley always comes up in these episodes.
Yes.
I think, the Stanley is so haunted. It's so well known. And room 311, I tried to look up 311, nothing for that particular room. The rooms, I got little notes here I wrote down. Room 217 is from the 1977 Shining. Remember The Shining? That's the room that Stephen King stayed in. So that is like backed up for you. You can't even get in that room in Halloween. Everybody, it's got years of backup. Room 401, it's a cavernous attic. Female employees, childhood and nannies, or children, and nannies to stay. So it's on the top where the attic where they would keep all those people.
Right.
And so they're above it, they hear stuff all the time. 401 is definitely that. And then room 428 is the big bad one. They said that there's times there's a cowboy in the corner. He's a friendly cowboy.
Just
hanging out. And the crazy part about that one is above them there's nothing, but you'll hear furniture moving, children running, all that stuff.
And there's absolutely nothing above them.
And the way that it's described is the way the roof is sloped, there can't be anything. There's no furniture to move. There's nothing. Yeah, there. So you hear that. So although 311 didn't come up like Kelly said, the children thing checks out up and down the hall.
Yeah.
Outside it snowed. There was no snow, no footprints or whatever.
No footprints at all anywhere.
That checks out. And then if you also Google or YouTube white girl Stanley dress, a little girl in a Stanley white dress, they have a picture at the bottom of they're doing a little ghost tour. Yeah. These people taking pictures everywhere, and this one on the bottom step of the big staircase. Yes. There's a little girl, like an apparition,
just standing there,
of a girl dressed just like Kelly said. So, something to definitely check out. So,
yes.
So, like I said, that was filmed at the Brush Arts Center. Thank you, Kelly Paris, for sharing that one.
Yes,
also,
thank you.
If we do it next year, she's got a better story that she's not comfortable with telling quite yet. So yeah, that was a great story from Kelly Paris. And next year's, I hope she does tell. She told it to me, and it goes along the lines of portals and Ouija boards, and I was like, oh, Kelly, that's. And it wasn't even her; it was a roommate. You know what? We'll tell it next year.
We'll save that for next year.
All right. Yeah. Our last story of the day. Another bartender of yours.
Oh, yes.
Someone who faces this a lot, I guess. So has dealt with stuff like this. Danny Ketchum. What's up, Danny?
Hello.
Yep. So this is a little longer one. I asked if they recorded at home, because she recorded this one in a neighbor's garage, that they do it right, make it a little spooky, and she came through. So thank you, Danny, for going the extra mile. Great story. Let's check it out. Here we go.
So I have a ghost story for the podcast. I'll start out by saying I am sensitive to paranormal stuff. I know that sounds weird to most, but I am. I've had something happen to me at every single house that I've ever lived at. And I don't know, I pick up on it. I can see through filters. So like, I can see through, like I can see them through mirrors, stuff like that. So I had 8 months of absolute hell in my house. So we lived in Masters, right on Highway 34. On the straightaway where there's a ton of wrecks constantly. So a lot of death has happened right in front of that house. So it started out that my daughter was 3 years old at the time, and she asked me to put a padlock on her closet. Like she wanted me to lock her closet, and I'm like, oh, okay, like I'll buy a new doorknob. And she's like, no, like a lock, like the master locks, like full padlock. And I was like, okay, that's what you buy. But she wouldn't tell me why. And I just figured little kids, scared of closets. That is what it is. And then little by little, things just started getting weird. Like she would be gone to her dad's house, and I would be home alone. And at first I started noticing that there was like massive piles of stitching, like stitching out of clothes on the floor in my closet. I don't know why. Like it was just weird. It would be like a massive pile where it was noticeable. And then next, it was my clothes in my dresser were all messed up. And I'm very meticulous about my drawers. Like it's by color, it's by sleeve length. And they'd just be all jumbled. And it's not normal. So I actually was like asking my husband at the time, like, what are you looking for? Like, I don't understand. Why are you going through my drawers? I would ask my daughter, did you go through my drawers? Everybody said no. There was no explanation for why all of this stuff was going on. And then after that, so after that, there was where I could see through filters usually. This person, I actually thought it was a real person the first time. It would like jump scare me. Anytime I turned around a corner, like walking into the bedroom, anything, going through a doorway, it'd just jump at me and scare me. And then it would start screaming at me, but I couldn't hear what it was saying, but everything would just sound like static. And it would do it for like 2 or 3 minutes. And then it turned into the point that like I would be in the shower and I couldn't see it at the time, but I felt the energy that it was that same person. It was trying to push me over in the shower, like the shower curtain, like I could see a full handprint coming at the shower curtain at me. And like it would hit me and try to push me over. And so I reached out to my sister and I was like, okay, this stuff is going on. Like, you know, we experienced this stuff at Mom's house. What do you think? And she went and talked to all of her nurse friends, and they decided that I was absolutely nuts and needed to be committed. So she was literally talking to my entire family that I needed to be committed. Something was wrong. I was going crazy. And then finally, so I'm home alone one night, and my dog, my giant lab dog, which he was really good. He did not bark unless it was necessary. He attacked the window with the curtain closed. Like it literally sounded like somebody was outside of our window, shaking the window frame. Well, prior in the day, my aunt had been over at the house. I had walked through the yard. She walked through the yard and went and gave our dogs outside treats. And my husband at the time had gone out and fed him and everything before he left. So there should have been 3 sets of footprints in our yard. So when the dog attacked the window and everything, I thought somebody was really out there, like, trying to break in. I lived on 34. We had weird people pulling our driveway all the time. And the cops show up. It was the Kersey cops. They checked the entire perimeter, and we didn't have grass at the time. It was all dirt, and there were no footprints, not a single footprint, when there should have been 3 different sets of footprints. And the cop literally walked into the house, and he was like, "Are you sure that you don't have a ghost?" And I was like, "Well, I've thought about that already, but like, really?" And he was like, "There's literally not a single footprint out in your yard." And the cops actually escorted me to Greeley to my sister's house because I was so scared. I was sitting in the corner with a pistol waiting for the cops to get there. I thought somebody was outside. So that happens, and we decided to, oh, everybody thought I was crazy then too. Yeah, I was so crazy. And we're laying in bed one night, and the head of our bed butted up to the wall that my daughter's closet was. It was the wall to my daughter's closet. My daughter was gone with her dad. Nobody was in there. And we heard 3 knocks right at the head, like right at our heads. And my husband's like, what? I was like, "I told you so, I'm not crazy." So he pounded back 3 times. It pounded back 3 times. So I decided to go in my daughter's room. Her closet is padlocked. And I opened the padlock, go in there. There's nothing in there. No reason that there should have been that pounding. And so then I wasn't crazy anymore. People believe me. So that was good. But we decided to start researching paranormal investigators because clearly something was going on. So we found some guys out of Fort Collins that were related to, they were associated with the TAPS team, all the TV guys. And they came out, and we started the investigation where we spent 15 minutes in each room. They had cameras set up in every room. They had the EVP monitors. They had voice recorders, everything. One of the guys claimed that he got his hair pulled in my daughter's room. And then in our room, they chose to ask if it follows me, which I was terrified, and thank God I didn't respond. And then we went into the basement, which we had the creepy, unfinished John Wayne Gacy basement. Nothing. The creepiest part of our house, nothing. So then after that, we decided to go outside. Even our dogs went outside. There was no movement in our entire house. And we stayed outside for, I think, an hour and a half. And when we went back in, every single monitor on all of the cameras, when we left, the LCD screens were open. When we came back in, they were all shut. And then once they reviewed the footage, our baby gate that locked off the front area of the house to keep the dogs out there from the rest of the house, it just, for about 5 minutes, very gently swung in, fully locked. So you have to push the buttons, everything to open it. No, it fully swung back open. Nobody unlocked it. So definitely had evidence that something was going on. And then after that, we chose to talk to a friend of ours that she is very in tune with these kind of things as well. And she happens to have a friend in California that is a psychic. And all she did was Google our address. And within 30 seconds of just Googling our address, she was able to tell us that our actual front yard was the original trail to the Rockies. And 34 was literally built to like mimic the Trail of the Rockies. But it was actually, our front yard was the actual trail. And she said that all of those encounters that we had, they were different ones. There were numerous because we had a portal in our basement that they could come and go freely. And the one that wanted to scare me all the time, and he was trying to push me over and screaming at me all the time, was actually an Indian that was angry about their land. Totally understandable. And then the other ones were just like kind of mischievous, messing with us. Like they didn't really understand what was going on anyways. There was a lot of death on that trail. And these people could just come and go freely. So who knows how many we actually had. And she also told us that to stop it, that we had to fully stage the house and we had to have professionals come out again and close the portal. And so we had the house fully staged, and we never really could find anybody to close the portal. But the people that moved in after us, like, aren't necessarily as sensitive, so they haven't noticed anything. But I can still drive past that house, like, and I can feel the energy. There was literally 7 crosses right in front of our house. So even if it was like, yes, it was the Trail of the Rockies as well, but I also feel like it's the tragic deaths that has happened on Highway 34. It's the worst highway ever, honestly. And it's just, yeah, it was literally 8 months of hell. Like, my family wanted to commit me to a psych ward. They thought I was nuts. So, yeah, that's my ghost story.
So, that one, kind of crazy. 34 is well known for people losing their life on.
Oh, absolutely.
To this day, I'm 47 years old, and if I go to Greeley, my mother's like, "You call me when you get
yes.
yeah." And same with her when she goes to any kind of doctor's
if you're
appointment.
going that way, that check in.
Lost a little brother on 34. You know what I mean? So it's crazy. It's a crazy highway, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it's just because people are in such a stupid hurry and they're just not paying attention to what they should be.
Absolutely crazy. But in her story, people dying all the time. Take a step back. Like on Rick's story, the Phantom Driver, you see stories all the time of people walking up and down highways, like ghosts lost.
They're lost.
And she had brought up Danny, that there was a bunch of crosses in the road, you know?
Yeah.
And even if it was a trail, there's people who have died. So maybe those are just spirits, you know,
that
and
are right there.
Are confused and lost and angry or whatever. So kind of a scary thing for her to deal with, you know, especially when you see stuff so often. Your family thinks you're crazy.
Yeah.
Because you're seeing this shit.
And she says she actually sees them, not just can hear them or feel them.
Right.
She can actually see them.
She's like Haley Joel Osment on the Sixth Sense, you know, the little boy, I see ghosts. So she says a few times that she's very sensitive to it. So she's kind of a crazy story, Danny. So
that one was.
Yeah, it was wild. It was absolutely wild. So
crazy.
Some great stories. I really had fun with this. And there's a few people. The Cage brothers got a hold of me. I couldn't get a hold of them to do this again. There's been 4 or 5 people. So there may be another one of these coming in November. Who knows? We'll see if you have an interest in sending us a video. I'd love to see it. Boooolhucker.com. You can check us out there.
Yeah.
And you hit the contact form. You get a hold of me. I'm pretty easy. I'm Larry Moose Lundstrom on Facebook. I'm pretty easy to find and get a hold of. Christine Castow, come to the Club Tap Room. Have a beer anyway. Come check out. Yeah. They've done a lot of great decorating for Halloween. They get into it here. That's why we picked this for the Halloween spot. And let her know. You know, it'd be fun. And I just reached out to people that had already been on the podcast they kind of knew what we do. I was going to reach out to the public, but then I thought, well, we'll see how this first one goes.
Yeah.
It is a little bit of work, but it's fun. I've enjoyed it.
Yes.
I've liked the research behind it. And also, if you want to follow us on the Boooolhucker.com, little red button right on the right-hand corner of the screen, go ahead and hit that. It's a little click for you, but a huge click for us. You can follow us on the Boooolhucker. We're on Facebook, Instagram. I've got a little TikTok going on. Once again, you can also find all the stuff for the Club Tap Room, Picking Out Barbecue, and the Brush Art Center in the description below. So you can check out those places. Please support them. Local businesses that have done great to support a local podcast. So very much appreciate it, Christine.
Well, thank you.
This was a fun one.
This one was really a fun one.
Yeah. We're going to do 3 holidays a year. This is the Halloween one. I'm also in March for St. Patty's Day going to do a One Time I Was So Drunk podcast. So bring me your best drunken stories there, podcast listeners. That'll be fun.
That one will be hilarious.
Because I think you and I have been in that life long enough to where we could probably match any story you got.
We'll give it a shot.
Or come damn close, sadly enough. And then for the 4th of July, it'll be all veteran stories.
Yeah, that one will be amazing.
So if you have a veteran in your life that has a great story, we'd love to hear it. Love to have them on.
Absolutely.
Take a video of them. And it's any story they want. You know, it's their holiday. So absolutely. So, hey, Christine, thank you.
Thanks. Had a great time.
Yeah, thanks for letting us do the Club Tap Room again. We were here quite a bit now. I like it. So,
good.
And everybody out there, you have a happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
See you next year. Bye.
Thank you.